Hey everyone, I am Trina from Mindset and Movements, and we're here today to look at our spines and how to protect them and how to get the best function out of them for the longest possible duration that we can in our lives. So I want to cover 4 points around preservation of the spine. So the first point I'd like to go through with you all today is that where our spines break down is where they're loaded with gravity from the weight of our body, or maybe loading with excess weights or things like that, where we load the most, our lumbar spine, at our cervical spine from the weight of our head. That's where we can break down the most easily. And also where we move the most is where we break down the most easily. So what would be really helpful for the spine is that we unload it. So please check out that video on unloading positions for the spine. It's a really important practice to start to work with in your life to protect your spinal integrity and health. And another important issue to work with is learning how to move these big ball and socket joints of the hips and of the shoulders while keeping the spine silent or neutral. So learning your neutral spine, let's go through that right now so that all of you can get a feel for that. So we're going to make our way onto our backs, and I'm going to demonstrate with this spine. So you can come onto your back, and I'm just going to move our spinal model onto its back, her back. So while you're there, once you get down, try to lie in such a way that you're not using a pillow support if you can, and stretch your legs out if it feels comfortable. Now the first thing to notice is that the back of your skull will contact the ground. Notice where the back of your skull contacts the ground. Notice this gentle lightness at the small of the neck. It might even be that the small of your neck lifts and curves away from the ground. And so feel that there is a lightness there. And then notice the contact between the middle back and the ground. And then feel again for that lightness or that spaciousness down at the low back. So just like the neck, the low back also has what we call a lordosis, this gentle curvature. So feel for that lightness down there as well. And then feel at your pelvis for that returning heaviness. So you're just learning on your back here to feel for this gentle undulating curvature through your spine. Notice where you contact the floor. Now notice where you don't contact the floor. Beautiful. So the idea, once you learn your neutral spinal alignment, is that you can take that spinal alignment into the conditioning and strengthening exercises for your legs and hips, which we will absolutely work on at another time. All right, spinal secret number 2. A lot of times when I am working with people in the clinic and they come in and it's almost like an auto mechanic situation where, they'll present to me, oh, when I do this, this is the feeling I get. And the feeling's, shocking or tension or pain or whatever it is that they're feeling in the spine. It's important to notice sensations in the spine, but it's also really important to know this quality about the back in general is that it doesn't have enough sensory input for us to be able to distinguish very finely between these really close structures. So in the spine, if you take a peek, you can see disc right up against bone, right up against nerve, right up against ligaments and cartilage. And so we're not going to be able to tell necessarily if pain is coming from one of these structures or another. This is when we need to have a professional check us out, maybe even take some images, your doctor, your physical therapist, to help make sense of what structure it is. So to determine the meaning behind the sensations that you're having, we have to have a physical exam. There has to be some kind of workup done around that. It's not enough just to have the physical sensations. Even if you had physical sensations in the past, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, and somebody said, oh, it was because of this, because you're having similar sensations now, it doesn't necessarily mean that that same condition's going on. So it's really important if you are having physical sensations in your spine that you get things looked at, checked out by a professional. Highly recommend going to your medical doctor and or getting a referral for your orthopedic physical therapist. All right, let's move on. So another really important and interesting fact about the spine, something that I think a lot of us miss, is that the spine is made up of living, changing tissues. So the tissues of our spine are changing all the time, just like all of the tissues in our body. So often this spine has a disc herniation at this low level, which is a really common level for us to get a herniation at because of the amount of loading we have and the amount of motion that's available here. So when this disc herniates, typically what happens is there's like this bulging out and maybe fraying of some of the tissues around the disc. But it's really important to know that just like you get a cut on your skin and then it knits back together, that also happens at the discs. That also happens when we're talking about the peripheral nerves. That happens across all the tissues in the body. So a really important part of a rehabilitation process or in working with your physical body is to know that whatever you have going on in your physical body is changeable. You're able to allow those cells to be progressed towards healing if you start to do things differently. If you, for instance, if the lumbar herniation in your back, if you learn to unload your spine when you work with your physical therapist, that will allow the disc material to start to move back in where it's meant to be, and that annulus or that fibrous outer casing to start to heal and knit together. If you have osteoporosis and you learn to start to create extension, compression through the back of the body, this engagement of muscles along the bones of the back of the body, you will start to build more bone cell. And when you use movement to help change and shape and remodel your body and the tissues of your spine, know that it takes a long time. It can take about 8 months before you really start to see the impact of a bone building program. It can take a long time for peripheral nerves to heal. So what you want in that time period is to be slow and steady and committed to this process that you're in around your recovery. So it's really important, if you're interested in building spinal strength, that you start to learn your neutral spine, as I mentioned in the point above, and then that you work with a professional or you work with some evidence-based exercises to help gently build up your back in a way that's safe for you. Okay, and the final and one of the most important things to note about the spine is that when you look at our spines, you can kind of see down into the pelvis. Now the pelvis helps to hold up the spine, but if you think about the muscles that attach in and around the pelvis, these really strong group of gluteals, these are essentially the foundation, along with down at your feet. These are the foundation that set up your beautiful spinal motion. So when you don't have strong and functional and capable gluteal muscles, I like to describe it as being almost like a house that you build on sand. So it'd be like we have this spine and then it's on a very unstable platform. What you'd rather have is a very healthy, functional platform from which your spine can function from. Okay, so those 4 points again, I'm just going to mention them pretty quickly. We'll run through them here again. The first thing is that your spine breaks down the most where you move it the most and where you load it the most. So learn on working with loading and learn on working with stabilization, or the ability to keep your spine silent while the big ball and socket joints of the shoulders and the hips move. The second thing to know about the spine is that sensory information that the spine has is not going to provide you with diagnostic information. So, you really need to make sure that you're careful and thoughtful in how you work with sensory information. And I have a lot of writing on my blog on working with sensory information, and I will put that link below. Another great resource for working with sensory information is from the Neuro Orthopedic Institute, and I will also put their link below. The third important point to know is that you are changing and reshaping your spine every single day based on how you're moving. You're reshaping your bones. You are teaching your discs how to behave. You are either unloading and nourishing the discs, or you are compressing the tissue of the discs. So with your motion, you are really instructing your spine in how to exist. So it's really important to be conscious about the movements that you do when you're working with the spine. And then the fourth most important thing is to know that your glutes are a really important part of spinal health. and they're an important part of spine foundations. And if you are interested in learning more about gluteal strength and how to balance your gluteals, please go and check out our workshop on gluteals, which is called Fire Up Your Glutes, and that is available through Mindset and Movements. I'm going to put the link below. We're also doing a spine workshop this month, so if you are interested in learning more about the spine, you can access the recording to the link that I put when I post this video. Okay, and if you have more questions, I would love to hear more questions, comments about what has been helpful and healthful for you in working with your own spine, and especially if you're a provider, what's been helpful and healthful for you with respect to evidence-based research and working with the spine. All right, I look forward to seeing you all soon. Take good care. Happy moving.